Hi, this is Nadine McNeil, Universal Empress, coming to you live and direct from my favorite red wall, sitting here with Kevin Wallen this afternoon. Kevin, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We've finally joined forces, yoga and wrestling.
Yes.
How are we going to do that?
Well, look, I as a wrestler for many years, there was no yoga in my game, and now that there's some yoga in my game, I can see the benefits of it. So definitely I can see how it is that moving forward, it's something that I'd like to start with as opposed to something that I'd want to add later on. So this is a great union.
Wonderful. Kevin and I are collaborating along with Rock Tower on Passion Street downtown to bring wrestling into the community. As many of you know, we already have yoga in the community with a successful program. We've managed to have one teacher trained, Christopher Jones, thanks to Yoga Angels. Big up Subhadra Bowman. And so now here we are doing wrestling, and it's kind of one of these things that happens serendipitously. Kevin, as everyone or most people watching this know, has a huge fitness background. He's recently done his own yoga certification. Wrestling is in his blood. He'll talk to you a bit about that. And we came together and said, wow, here are two tools that we can use for community development as well as social empowerment in inner city communities.
Right.
So, talk to me about why you feel wrestling is the perfect sport for young men, particularly in inner city communities.
Well, first of all, anybody can wrestle. And it's not just for young men, it's open to young women as well. Anybody
can I wrestle too?
Absolutely.
Woohoo!
Absolutely.
Yoga wrestling, here I come.
Wrestling is one of those sports where all you really need to do is to show up and you can learn the sport. You don't have to be good from the get-go. You don't have to be slim. You don't have to be fat. You don't have to be big and muscular. You don't have to be anything. All you have to do is just have a desire to try it. And once you try it, then you'll find that just by coming to the room each day, you have no choice but to get better.
Well, you know, I watched Kevin a few weeks ago at the Chinese Benevolent Association, and one of the things that really struck me about wrestling, there's a certain amount of, let's say intimacy for lack of a better word, that comes through with the wrestling. And if we are able to work with young people in the community where they're able to get in touch with their emotions, an emotion like anger, for example, that we can then work through. Yeah. Also the whole essence of contact, how do we then touch each other? Then we can take the breath, the yogic aspect, and take things a lot deeper. What do you think of that?
Well, I think wrestling in general, it requires you to be strategic about your movements. Because whoever it is that's going to be your opponent, they would have access to coaches, they would have access to the same kind of material that you have to become better or whatever at your craft. So if it is that you're going into a match, you have to be strategic about what it is that you're doing. You have to have the edge. And I think just being able to integrate yoga into it and the whole breathing aspect, because if you can imagine that someone of equal weight constantly pushing against you, trying to, maneuver, to get their moves done on you kind of thing, you have to then figure out how it is that you can stay in shape or stay breathing through that process. 2 minutes feels like an eternity in wrestling. Wow. And so the breath becomes very important at that point.
Wow.
And so yoga brings that, and flexibility is also very important. Explosiveness is also very important. And all of those things I believe that we get from yoga. When it is that you watch a wrestling match, you'll realize that you have to be so composed. And so when you go into the wrestling situation, you can't go in there with all your burdens, you can't go in there with your temper, you can't go in there with any kind of anger. You have to be able to clear. Wow. And so just to be able to clear before a match, to be able to clear after a match, and to be able to keep your composure during a match.
That's a yogic experience. Totally, that's a yogic experience. So Kevin has spoken about the strategy behind wrestling, and I'm talking about the awareness factor that we learn through the practice of yoga. So you marry those two things and you have a win-win.